So data flow diagrams, where these data flow diagrams fit in. Data, flow of data, and the diagrams which are showing the flow of data. So they fit in life cycle phases, the planning, the feasibility study, analysis, design. Where do they fit in? Either code or unit test. So in analysis, what we do? First, we do the fact finding, try to investigate the business process and the current system. Then we try to model the current and required system. What are the deliverables of the analysis faced? The deliverables are requirement specification and the logic models of the required system. So DFD, it describes the flow of data or information in and out of the system. So what does the system do to the data? DFD is a graphic representation of the flow of data or information through a system. There are four main elements in a DFD. First, we have an external entity, process, the data store, and the data flow. So external entities are those people and organizations that send data into the system or receive the data from the system. So we have external entity. Then the process, the models that happen to the data, that is transform incoming data into the outgoing data. So this is incoming. The processes would transform them to the output data. What is the data store? It represents the permanent data that is used by the system. Say a database, for example, or a file, flight file. Then the data flow. This models the actual flow of data between the elements. These are the notion of what we have just talked about. Data flow shown by an arrow. Process by this figure. External entities by a round ellipse. Data store by this notation. So we have leveled DFDs. Means DFDs can be, say, context level 0, 1 like that. Even a small system could have many processes and data flows. And DFD could be large, very large. So we use the leveled DFDs. We view system at different levels of detail. One overview and then many progressively greater detail view. That is why we call them as the level DFDs. Level 0. What is level 0? It is a context diagram. So it just models the system as one process, as you see here, which represents the scope of the system. It identifies the external entities and the related input and output. Data in, data out. Data in, data out. The additional notation may be some system box. Now we come to the level 1 or the overview diagram, which gives the overview of the full system. Now we try to identify the major processes and data flow between these processes. And we try to identify the data stores that are used by the major processes. And boundary of level 1 is the context diagram. Then we come to level 2, which is more detailed diagram. So level 1 process is expanded into more detail. Each process in level 1 is again decomposed into its constituent processes. So boundary of level 2 is level 1 processes. There are other notations also. Duplicate or duplicates are marked by a diagonal line in corner. We have system boundaries. Then elementary processes, that is the star in the corner. Then processes that is leveled. We can represent it like dots on tops. So what are the rules for DFDs? First is numbering, then the labeling, then the balancing. What do we mean when we say the rules for DFDs? The first is numbering. On level 1, processes are numbered as 1, 2, 3. On level 2, the processes are numbered as, say, x.1. So it is like this, 2.1, 2.2 like this. Where x is the number of the parent level of one process. If here you choose 2, it will be all 2.1, 2.2 and 2.3 like this. Then the number which is used is uniquely identify a process, not to represent any order of processing. Right? Number which is used to uniquely identify a process, not to represent any order of processing. And data store a number like this, D1, D2, D3, capital D1, D2, D3. What about the labeling? The process label, short description of what the process does. For example, price order. This is how we will label. Data flow label, a noun which represents the data flowing through it. Let us say customer payment. Then data store label, which describes the type of the data which is stored. And the make labels, we are going to make labels as meaningful, as intuitive as possible. So balancing and data stores. Balancing means any data flows entering or leaving a parent level must be equivalent to those on the child level, the previous level. And what about the data stores? The data stores that are local to the process need not be included until the process is actually explained. Data flows, they are allowed to combine several data flows from lower level diagrams at a higher level under one data flow to reduce the clutter. And data flows should be labeled except when data to and from a data store consist of all items in the data store. This is Joe's yard. We have to construct a context level DFD and level 1 DFD for this system. So Joe's builder supplier has a shop and a yard. His system is entirely manual. He has a stock list on the wall of his shop, complete with the prices. So when a builder wants to buy supplies, he goes into the shop and picks the stock items from the list. He writes his order on a duplicate docket and pays to Joe, who stamps the docket as paid. So the builder takes the duplicate docket and he goes to the yard and hands it over to the yard foreman. The yard foreman gets the ordered item from the yard and gives them to the builder. The builder signs the duplicate docket and leaves one copy for the foreman and takes one copy as a receipt. So every week, Joe looks around the yard to see if any of his stock is running low. He rings up the relevant suppliers and reorders the stock. He records the order in his order book, which is kept in the yard. So yard foreman takes delivery of the new stock and checks it against what has been ordered. He pays for it on delivery and staples the receipt order into the order book. So at the end of every month, Joe goes through all the dockets and the order book and produces a financial report for the shareholders. Context level and level 1 DFD. Context level. We need to find the people who send data into the system. We often see the data is a part of a physical transaction, and when handling a bar of a chocolate to a shopkeeper, you are handing him or her a barcode. You need to find out the people who get data out of the system. So data into the system, data out of the system. So the only data you need, the data that is transformed or sent completely out of the system, not data that is handled by an operator within the system. This is what we just talked about. So the context diagram would be something like this. This is Joe yard. First is Joe, then we have a customer, then the supplier, and the shareholders. So Joe, first is this, that Joe interact with the customer in these terms: a signed docket, a docket and payment. Then the supplier, the supply order and payment, and the supply invoice. While the Joe yard gives a financial report final at the end of the month to the shareholder. So what we have to find out for level 1 DFD is has, buy supplies, picks, pays. So we need to see the verbs. So verbs from the script are these. These are the verbs we picked. So we need to remove passive verbs and queries like has stock list, buy supplies. Buy supplies means pick stock items, write orders, pay Joe and stamp docket. The customer then takes the docket to the yard, hands it to the foreman, and gets item. It gives them to builder. Builder sign docket and takes a copy as receipt. Joe then looks around yard and reorders and record order in order book. Foreman takes delivery, checks. Foreman pays supplier and staples receipt to order book. And Joe finally produces the financial report. So now this is level 1. What we have done is, whatever we have learned there, or we have picked up, we have categorized them with respect to their equality or similarity. And then, just an example I will give you, that a customer. So docket and payment is given to buy supplies. Once the get item is done, the completed docket copy is given back to the customer. The required stock is given to the customer, and the builder signature for getting items, and this signed docket which is taken to the yard, and the signed docket is given to the foreman. So this is just an example, and all those we have learned has been shown here. Please understand what we are doing here in 3 20, 22. These are the numbers, they are the labeling, the numbering which we have done. So buy supplies, we took that 20th part. So customer 20.1 is rights order. So this is a docket. This is the primary one. So we go to the docket 20.3, stamp docket signature. Then the external entity, docket. Again, the money is external. So customer payment, Joe pays Joe's and the payment is done to money. Then the get item. So these are self-explanatory. Please give some time to understand this, as I explained earlier. This is about the reorder supplies. This is about the restocking. So this was the brief idea about DFD, and I hope you understand by now that the analysis phase requires this DFD. We have certain rules and regulations and the ideas which DFD uses, and how we can make a context, and then level 1, level 2 depending upon the content of the problem statement. This is how we analyze and make a DFD which can be presented for further action. Thank you so much.